We have a very special guest, somebody who's actually motivated a lot of the crew members of Hard Lens Media, Jimmy Dore. He's the host of Aggressive Progressive, the Jimmy Dore Show, and he's a commentator also on the main show, The Young Turks. Thank you so much for joining
Hey,
us.
pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So we've interviewed you a few times in the past, especially most notably in Philadelphia during the DNC convention, as well as at the People's Summit last year or in 2016. But it seems like for the most part, a lot of people have looked at 2016 as a key year for American politics. But for the most part, when it was being covered, especially during the primaries and the general election, you were very critical on how it was being covered by corporate media. When was the moment that you realized that this election was not going to go the way corporate media was portraying it to the American people? Because they were saying that Clinton was going to win, but
Right.
that didn't turn out to be the case.
Well, I'm not the best predictor, so I also didn't think that Donald Trump would win. So the moment I guess didn't come for me until the night of the election, and I was preparing for a Hillary Clinton presidency, which is its own kind of demon. It's its own different, just like Barack Obama, right? So now people are waking up to this horrible immigration policies. And what I did say during the 2016 election, if Trump becomes president, is that the government of Barack Obama is doing so much horrible stuff. Maybe it will put a bad face on the horrible stuff this government's already doing. Like, I'm talking about our foreign wars, I'm talking about our immigration policy, I'm talking about our lack of supporting the middle class and poor people in America, our incarceration problem. So I thought that Trump would put an ugly face on all that horrible stuff we're already doing. In fact, he is. Yeah. So now people are upset about the way we treat immigrants in America, whereas under Barack Obama, no one gave a crap about it. And they started tweeting out pictures of kids in cages. Well, turns out Barack Obama built those cages. So the one, silver lining to this horrible presidency would be that people are now aware of what their government is finally doing, except they're also being propagandized very heavily by the establishment media. Like, for instance, when it comes to North Korea, right? So I don't care if Trump messes up. If we somehow avoid a nuclear war or a confrontation, if he's for peace, I'm for it. And of course, whatever Trump is for, the establishment media is against, right? So if he's for peace, they're for war. If he's for war, they're for peace. And you see, no, in fact, if he's for war, they're for war. So they're for war even when he's for peace. The establishment media is pro-war in Syria, pro-war in Afghanistan, pro-war in Libya. They were pro-war in Iraq, and now they're going to be pro-war in Iran. And that's why my show exists, I think. I think that was the big defining moment for the Young Turks when Cenk Uygur called out the media, because half the country still believed that Saddam had weapons of mass destruction, and of course he didn't. And so I think that's the mission of independent media, is to tell the truth that the establishment isn't telling. And when it was in 2016, the big truths that weren't told was that the system is rigged. It's rigged against progressives. It's rigged against any candidate who was actually going to speak up for people who are not in the upper 10%. Now, that's also been proven by the Princeton study, that we live in an oligarchy. We don't live in a democracy. And so I would like to see people speaking about, how we could actually bring democracy to America, instead of, hey, how could we bomb someone in Syria or Libya or Somalia or Afghanistan or Iraq or Iran, because that's how we try to bring democracy to the rest of the world. Maybe we should just set an example. I would like to set an example of how democracy works, how democracy can actually make regular people's lives better in the United States. But we live in a country where we take the richest country in the world, the United States, right? Our GDP is still greater than China's. And we take the richest country, we render half of its population poor or low income. That's called a failed system.
And not to mention 25% of it's incarcerated as well.
And we're the world's biggest penal colony, right? We have 5% of the world's population. We incarcerate 25% of the world's prison population. And a lot of people calling it the new Jim Crow, which it is. It's racist, right? So our criminal justice system is completely racist. Everyone knows it. And now people are upset that Jeff Sessions, a racist, is the head of our criminal justice system. And I say, no, maybe that's good. Maybe now people will be able to fight up against it and demand change and reform in our criminal justice system because a racist is leading a racist justice system. When Eric Holder was the head of the criminal justice system, again, everyone went to sleep because, oh, there's a guy who's supposed to be a lefty in charge of the criminal justice system, except he wasn't. He was a corporatist who turned his eye to corruption and crimes that were being committed at the corporate level, and he focused everything, again, didn't reduce the prison population. And, you know, Barack Obama could have pardoned everybody that was in prison on a possession. And he didn't. He could have done anything. He didn't do anything bold. The bold thing he did was take us from 2 wars to 7. That was his big, bold move.
Now, of course, right now, especially in the United States, there's a huge discord in regards to how, or at least conversation in regards to how we should our government be represented. And, you know, Harlan's Media in the past, we've covered a lot of third-party events. And nearly 40% of Americans are identifying themselves independent.
That's right.
Either
bigger than either party.
Libertarian, Green, Democratic, Socialist. In your own opinion, though, has the past 2016 election cycle, as well as this current election cycle, made Americans lose trust in a two-party system and reevaluate third parties as a political force? And what will be the future going forward in regards to third parties? Because I know here in Illinois, it's very draconian. You need about 25,000 signatures plus another 25,000 signatures, altogether 50,000 signatures, just to be on the ballot and to be on the debate stage. Whereas if you're a Republican or a Democrat here in Illinois, you need about 1,000 or 5,000 signatures.
So what is the question? Do I think it's reinvigorated people's call for a third party?
Yes,
I think they, and
yes.
those numbers keep growing, right? So the numbers for the Democrats and Republicans keep shrinking. They're somewhere around 26, 27% for each party. Mm-hmm. And like you said, there's a plurality for people who consider themselves third party, but there's even a bigger majority of Americans who want a third party. So again, you would never see this reflected back to you in the establishment media. Just as Chomsky has taught us, the establishment media isn't there to reflect back your ideas. It's there to reflect back the ideas of the people who own the media, which is the upper 1%. And so you're made to sit there thinking that you're the only person thinking this, right? So you're watching the media and you don't see your opinion reflected back that you want a third party. What gets reflected back to you is third parties can't happen, you can't do it, you got to stay inside. Jill Stein is a Russian, Greens are bad, everybody, you can only stay inside the two-party system. That's what's reflected back to you in the media, and you're sitting at home thinking, well, I must be crazy to think we should have 3 parties.
And in fact, you see in like countries like Canada or member nations of the European Union, or even in Australia or any other democratic country, you have a vibrant multi-party system.
Yes.
And you have at least, if not 4 parties, 5 or 6 or 7
right.
or 8. But here in the United States, we only have a 2-party neoliberal system. And in fact, that goes on with a follow-up question. Since the 2016 elections, it's clear that the neoliberal system continues to push back against any type of change. What will it really take to effectively remove their power?
To remove the whose power?
The neoliberal system. The Democrats and Republicans, I mean, they both know the same people in Wall
yes.
Street. They know the bankers. They all are friends. What will it take to effectively remove the neoliberal system that we have? What will it take to remove them?
Well, to me, I think it's not going to happen inside the two-party system. Okay. I could be wrong about that, but the case that I make is that here we are 2 years after Bernie's revolution, and I live in California, which is the bluest of blue states, right? So if there's ever a chance where you could see, well, what would happen if the Democrats took over? What if this were, if all the blue had the blue wave and everybody, well, look at California. We have a super majority in our state legislature of Democrats, and we have a governor who's a Democrat. We're the 5th largest economy in the world. Do we have single payer? No, in fact, we had Democrats who blocked it. Do we have free college? No. Do we have net neutrality? No. In fact, we had Democrats who just gutted our net neutrality bill. And we're sending back to Washington, D.C. Remember, this is 2 years after Bernie's revolution, after the Democratic Party screwed him. We're sending back to Washington Kamala Harris, Dianne Feinstein, and Nancy Pelosi. This is the bluest of blue states. We get the worst of the corporatists. I mean, Dianne Feinstein is basically a right-wing Republican, like hard right. Nancy Pelosi's moderate right-wing, and so is Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris just famously gave her full-throated support for ICE, locking up immigrants who rape and kill people. Sounded just like Trump. So my point is the way we can get rid of this neoliberal system, which is worldwide, but here in America, the best way to fight back against it is we have to go outside the two-party system. In fact, Bernie Sanders in the 90s, he knew this. In fact, I have a videotape of him saying it, that there has to be a progressive movement in this country, and it has to happen outside the Democratic Party. And Bernie Sanders is not doing that. He started our revolution, which is outside the two-party system, except he's not running it. He's not the head of that. He can't be associated with it because it's a PAC. So he has other people running it for him. So he's not leading that organization that's outside the two-party system, which is what we need. We need a third party, if not a fourth party, and we need to break up the two-party duopoly, by the way, which also has a monopoly on the debates, right? So it used to be, when I was a kid, it was the League of Women Voters who scheduled the debates, and that's how you knew they were fair and not biased, right? Well, the Republicans and Democrats realized they got all the control. They created and they're all answerable to the same corporate donors, so they all really work for the same team. So they got together and created their Presidential Debate Commission, which has nothing to do with the League of Women Voters, and they get to set the rules, which is why Jill Stein is never invited to debate, right? In fact, when she showed up to a debate, they handcuffed her to a chair for 8 hours.
That was
why
in
would you do?
2008, right?
Yeah, why would you? I think it was 12. Why would you do that if you weren't afraid of her? So they're afraid of those ideas, which is why they won't allow an unbought, non-corporate tool to be on a debate stage. So we need to break that. We need to have 3 and 4 people up on that debate stage instead of one corporate warmongering tool and another corporate warmongering tool. And then we shame half the country who doesn't feel inspired to come vote for them.
Absolutely. And there's another concern, too, that we see with media as well, because the media is basically also allowing third parties to be pushed aside or considering them to be irrelevant. And this leads to another question that I have. Most Americans are now getting their news online, YouTube, social media. A lot of people are walking away from television and cable news. Yet there seems to be attacks on independent media. Lee Camp from America has been attacked. You've been attacked by CNN.
I've been attacked by CNN and the Washington Post.
And Washington Post as well as maybe a few other independent YouTube content creators, but I'll leave them nameless at the point.
Okay.
But I think we both know who we're talking about. But essentially, what can be done to really make sure that content creators who are calling out the corrupt neoliberal system and independent journalists remain free from harassment? Because you have stated on your show as well, like, hey, hit the subscribe button because they're unsubscribing people. What can be done to really make sure there's a safe platform for independent journalists to really call out our corrupt system?
You know what? I don't know that there is. You know what? I can have my own website, but now net neutrality is gone, so they can throttle that. I use YouTube to reach most of the people I reach. They're throttling YouTube right now, so they're trying to suppress independent media on YouTube, and it serves 2 purposes, right? So it serves, the big purpose is advertising, right? So they want to make money, and if you, so the mainstream establishment press like CNN realizes that YouTube is a threat to their advertising dollars, so they write these articles, and the Wall Street Journal and everybody else write these articles saying, YouTube's not safe to advertise on because they have radical programming, and your advertising for Nestle went on a right-wing or a Nazi website or a pedophile. Okay, again, this is all, you know, they put billions of ads on billions of videos, of billions of hours of watched every day, and 1 or 2 or 3 things pop up like that has no effect on anything, and that's so it's so. They're suppressing independent media. Now you go on YouTube, and it used to be I would see all these independent news producers say suggested media. Now my suggested media is always Fox, CNN, MSNBC, the AP, BuzzFeed. It's all these mainstream establishments. So what we can do to fight back against it, I have no idea. Again, it comes down to taking control of our government, and we have to do that. I don't think it's going to happen inside the two-party system. I don't mean to be too pessimistic, but, you know, Bernie came along. He has a moment. He's missing his moment, and it's going to be to the detriment of our country. You know, empires fall. We could easily fall. So that's where we are.
And it's quite clear on the way our current track is right now. The United States is losing allies. We're instigating trade wars with the European Union, China, Russia, Canada, Mexico, and it's just it seems like now we're just really becoming the enemy or that guy in the bar that causes a fight with everybody until one day people decide to meet him outside the back alley. But
I mean, things are bad for normal people in America. People are treading water. People are all afraid of getting sick because they'll go bankrupt in America. So this is what led people to Donald Trump. People didn't vote for Donald Trump because they woke up one day and said, hey, I hate Muslims and Mexicans. They decided to vote for Donald Trump because their life was horrible, and Donald Trump said, hey, it's Mexicans and Muslims. They're like, okay, I'll take anything. If you're offering to fix things for me, I'll take it. The Democrats aren't offering a counter program to Donald Trump. They're offering to be a little less horrible.
So when people talk about supporting a third-party candidate, what kind of pushback did you get when you decided not to support Hillary Clinton and instead support Dr. Jill Stein of the Green Party? Because I've received kind of a lot of negative comments from my friends and family members in regards to, why won't you vote for Clinton? She's a stronger candidate. But it seems like anyone who voted third party was immediately assaulted or attacked. Like, what kind of pushback did you get?
Yes, all those things. Oh, sure. It was, just voters, they're just shamed, right? People just, you're not a grown up. You're selfish. You're white, so it's not going to affect you. You're all this stuff. And I pointed out the people who were voting for Jill Stein were not rich people, right? The people voting for Jill Stein, majority of them. And I met lots of Hispanics and African Americans who were supporting Jill Stein because they were against, they've been the most harmed by corporate duopoly. And they know that we need to get rid of it, right? They know what those people in Wisconsin and Michigan know what Hillary Clinton did to them. They shipped their jobs out during NAFTA and they exploded the prison population. At the same time, they gutted welfare. That's what the Democratic Party did for those people. That's why half the country didn't show up to vote. And so, yes, I get it all the time. And it's up to if a politician doesn't have enough votes to win an election, you're supposed to go get those votes. You're supposed to earn people's votes. You're not owed anyone's vote. That's not how politics works. And if you're not into garnering votes through campaigning, electoral politics is not for you, as my friend Richard Eskow says.
So in regard to this, especially in regards to the primary, Bernie Sanders himself, while he was running during the primary, seemed to be very silent about the clear election fraud that was happening.
I know.
Because it's quite clear that the Democratic establishment and the Clinton campaign were working together to commit election fraud to deny Bernie Sanders a nomination. Why has he remained silent? I know that you've interviewed him, you spoke to him in the past. What do you think led to him to really not talk about it?
I have met Bernie Sanders. I have not interviewed him. What I think has led him to not talk about it is just what Chris Hedges says, is that he didn't want to end up another scapegoat for the Democrats' failings like they did to Ralph Nader. So Ralph Nader was again scapegoated for participating in democracy because he saw what was coming. He saw that if we don't stop this neoliberal train, which Bill Clinton ushered in for the Democrats, that we're going to end up with a right-wing demagogue, which is exactly what happened. So Bernie Sanders said to Chris Hedges, as his reports, that he didn't want to end up like Ralph Nader, so he's going to go along with the party. That's what Chris Hedges said. I'm not smart enough to know why Bernie's doing what he's doing. All I can think of is a political calculation of some sort, and it has to do with him running as a Democrat in 2020. And what I say is if Bernie runs as a Democrat in 2020 and the Democrats find a way to cheat him again, which they're already trying, they just passed a law or a rule in the DNC saying if you're not a member in good standing of the Democratic Party, you're not allowed to run. The DNC will decide who's a real Democrat and who's not. That was a direct threat at Bernie Sanders, right, to keep him in line. So if you start going against the party too hard, it's telling us that we rigged the primary against you, and we're not going to let you run as a Democrat in 2020. That's what that threat is. So they might not even let Bernie run in 2020 as a Democrat, which that would be hilarious to see happen because Bernie's putting all his eggs in the basket of he is going to run as a Democrat in 2020 and he thinks he's going to win. And what I say, if they find a way to cheat you again and you don't win, what have you built over these last 4 years? Nothing. You haven't built a goddamn thing. Nothing has been built. You wasted your moment, your opportunity to really, again, the way to affect the Democratic Party is the way it's always happened in the past. A third party props up and it either wipes out that party or that party absorbs the third party's ideas into its own, right? And you need people like that You need populist candidates to do that, and Bernie's not doing that. Bernie's bringing people into a Democratic Party which is actively working against progressives. Look what's happening with Joe Crowley and Ocasio-Cortez right now. He won't even get off the ballot. So all the party unity and loyalty has to come from the progressives to the Democrats. Democratic Party never has to be even fair to progressives. They're not even fair. Not only do they not represent progressives, the Democratic Party, they actively work against them and cheat them. Why would you want to be part of that party? So I got lots of pushback. I still do to this day. People blame me for the Supreme Court, even though Barack Obama didn't lift a finger to seat Merrick Garland.
And he had the power to do so.
Well, I just covered an article in the Huffington Post. They quote all these Democratic senators saying, we should have fought harder for that seat. We should have shut down the government. Barack Obama could have shut the government down saying, you have to seat my Supreme Court nominee. That's the Constitution. That's how it works. And you have to give him a hearing and you have to have a vote. He didn't do that. And you know why? Because the Democratic senators say they made a political calculation that Hillary was going to win anyway. And so they didn't fight. So again, the Democratic Party was let everybody down. But the Democratic Party doesn't want you to blame them. So then they tell their minions in the press to blame third-party voters. And that's exactly what's going on. It's the scapegoating of democracy is what it is.
And it's quite clear that there's a failure to really acknowledge the fact that the Clinton campaign actually propped up Donald Trump.
Of course they did.
I think it was Bill Clinton who told him, hey, go ahead and go run for office.
Well, it's in WikiLeaks emails revealed that their strategy is called the Pied Piper strategy, which was to elevate Donald Trump because he was so repulsive, they thought, to most Americans that he would be easier for Hillary to beat. They're the ones who propped up Donald Trump. Les Moonves at CBS, Phil Griffin, Rachel Maddow, Chris Hayes at MSNBC. They're the ones who propped up Donald Trump by showing his empty podium instead of showing a speech by Bernie Sanders. They're the one who fired Ed Schultz because he wanted to cover Bernie Sanders. They did that. But still, all the morons in the world will wag their finger at people who didn't vote or third-party voters. It's up to that's called, if half the country doesn't vote, that's called a massive failure of the two-party system to inspire people to vote. That's not the voters' fault. That's the political establishment's fault. And that's where we are. And the people who want to change that by bringing a third party that actually represents people, those are the people who get shamed by our establishment media, and that's why we do shows like this.
Exactly. But now let's also deal with another aspect, especially with corporate media. So, what are your concerns with the aftermath of this 2018 midterm, and what could be the possible outcome for the 2020 presidential election cycle? Could there be a possible second term for President Trump if, I guess, Bernie Sanders doesn't get the nomination, or the third-party candidate?
Is it possible that Trump could win again?
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yes, of course it is. Right. Yes, that's the big problem, because the way the resistance is trying to fight against Trump actually strengthens Trump, right? So they're not actually fighting him with policies that people need. They're not actually offering people anything. They're doing Entertainment Tonight smears. Oh, he's a Putin puppet, or they're doing homophobic memes with him kissing Putin and all that. That doesn't hurt Trump. That actually strengthens him with his base. Just like the birther stuff didn't hurt Barack Obama, it actually strengthened people who like Barack Obama. It strengthened their resolve to be for him. The birther stuff, that's what it did. The same thing is working for Trump. I just read an article today. The anti-Putin journalists inside Russia are disgusted with the United States media for covering Putin the way they're covering, making him seem like he's this all-powerful mastermind, which he isn't. So what that does is prop him up, right? When the American press and American politicians make Putin out to be like he controls our elections and he's this mastermind of everybody and controlling our president, that props up Putin. And it also props up Trump. And of course, that's how they're going to fight them, because in order to not fight Trump that way, they would have to actually have progressive policies that actually would improve people's lives, like Medicare for all, like free college, like a living wage, like ending the wars and having an infrastructure jobs program. They're not doing any of those things. In fact, they just voted to expand the wars, the Democrats did. The Democrats just voted to expand the surveillance powers of the president.
Done by Nancy Pelosi, who was screaming from the rooftop saying that Trump is a threat to freedom and security.
And they just voted to give him $80 billion more for bombs instead of $80 billion more for free college. And then they tell you can't have free college. Who's going to pay for that? So again, here we are stuck with a complete failure, transparent and existential failure of the Democratic Party, and that's why we're in the place we're in.
So let's also focus a little bit.
And why is it, this gets back to the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Why
is it when a Democrat nominates somebody to the Supreme Court, it's always some centrist like Merrick Garland? Why isn't it someone like when a Republican appoints, it's always like our extreme right winger, like Antonin Scalia, right? Why is it, or Gorsuch? They don't F around. They don't try to appease the left wing. They go hard. Barack Obama couldn't nominate more centrists. Why wouldn't he nominate someone like, the equivalent of Cornel West?
Or Lawrence Lessing.
Right. Yeah. Someone who people could actually fight for. The progressive wing of the country would actually be excited and fight for them. Because that's not who they are. The Democrats are failures.
So we've also seen the impact of money in politics. And I think even President Trump said it the best during the first Republican debate, where I give these people money and they do what I say. And of course, we also have to rewind back the clocks a little bit further when he was a Democrat and Clinton was running as senator. He obviously gave her campaign money. So when he gave her money, she probably did what he said too. So what will it really take to effectively get money out of politics?
So I don't know. The Wolf Pack is trying to get a constitutional amendment to get money out of politics or corporate money out of politics. I think what we need is for someone to make the case, right? So people could get behind it and to show people that public financing of elections actually saves us billions, if not trillions of dollars. Mm-hmm. So they're like, who's going to pay for public financing of elections? No, that's a cost-saving measure. We're actually going to spend less money, just like single payer. How are you going to pay for a less expensive healthcare plan? Well, we're going to pay less. So that's the same thing with public financed elections. We would actually save ourselves a lot of money, and that's where we need someone to articulate that to people. But if a politician did say that, every neoliberal on MSNBC would poo-poo that idea. Same thing at CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and they would all say how that's a bad idea. So I think we need leadership, and I think we need to try everything.
So as we're nearing the end of this interview, I'm pretty sure a lot of our viewers, if they don't know about you, they probably want to find out more about you on social media. So where can they find you online?
So I'm on Twitter, Jimmy_Dore, Dore, right. Or you can go to JimmyDoreComedy.com. That's my website, JimmyDoreComedy.com.
All right, fantastic. Jimmy Dore, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Media. You've been a huge influence to us and to our viewing audience. We really are grateful for all your support. If you like what we do, please check out our website, hardlensmedia.com, HARDLENSMEDIA.com. We're on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and Spreaker. Your support to us really helps us out because Chicago needs a strong independent media outlet. And again, Jimmy, you've been a huge influence towards us. We're really glad to have you as a guest on our show again at any time. And peace, everyone. Let's all do what we can to build a better future.
You're watching Hard Lens Media.